next speaker is going to be Tom Cantrall, and here he comes along right now. That's a long drive. Yeah. Want to sit on this side over here? On the side? Or, oh, you need some notes? Okay. Yeah, we can move that if you want.
Anybody mind if I sit down? I was going to anyway, I just wanted to check.
Can you still get them?
I can duck the tomatoes better from here. Hi, everybody. Have you learned anything today?
A few things.
That's cool. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something that's near and dear to my heart. Start off by telling you I've been doing this a while. August will be 64 years I've been researching Sasquatch. It started with the Jerry Crew incident in Northern California in 1958. A 15-year-old high school boy caught that newspaper article in his local newspaper and knew the area where it occurred. It was an area I hunted in occasionally, and it lit my fire. 15 books later, 63 and a half years, that fire's still burning. Okay? Now, I'm not quite sure how I will know when that thing up there clicks. But in case you're wondering, I'm the cute one. The other one, believe it or not, is a caricature of Patty's son. I met him face to face, along with her, at milepost 14 on the Go Road on the 21st of June, 2014. I came around a curve in the road, and there's two Sasquatch standing right in the middle of the road. I braked to a halt. I was 20 feet from them. The lady in the shotgun seat was over from England for this particular outing. Her first words were succinct but loud. Bigfoot! They turned and they went over the bank. And as they disappeared, a voice came in my mind, said, I'm the one you know as Patty. This is my son. Sorry about that if you don't like the move. For 5 years, my two research partners and I conducted a research There's one of them. I'm still the cute one. That's my buddy Randy. Pardon me, Brian. Randy's our other buddy there. This is in British Columbia, a little town of Maple Ridge. There's a provincial park that's got one road in it, runs about 4 miles and stops, and it's 124 miles to the next paved road, to the next road. Okay, great place for research. We talked to the park rangers one day there about the structures we were finding. They said, yeah, those are not legal in this park, so we started tearing them down. The trouble is we would tear them down, by the time we got back the next morning they were rebuilt. So we decided just to leave them alone now. But we also learned something else they do. They speak in glyphs. Okay, next. What is a glyph? A glyph is a written element that conveys meaning. There's one sample. Next. There's one we found up there. Next. Some more glyphs. Next. Again, what we found. Next. There's some more modern glyphs. Might recognize those. Next. Next. See, even the Mayans did it. Okay? Now, I've probably been told, oh, not more than 35 or 40,000 times, you're just reading tea leaves. Well, let me start this by saying, in that 5-year study, I had over 25,000 pictures of glyphs. Of that 25,000, I shared less than 100. The difference? That 100, there was other evidence there enough to make me over 90% sure of who the author was. The other 24,990, I couldn't do that. Somewhere between 50% and 90%, maybe. In order for me to share it, and everything I show you here, I have vetted to better than 99% chance that it is Sasquatch constructed. Now, I could go through, outline all of the things I did to ensure what I used for evidence, how I did it, but if I did, I'd watch your eyes gloss over. And I don't want to do that. So, can you take my word for it that we did use apply proof to these? We didn't just say, oh, that's pretty, we'll do it. And I'll show you some of them as we go along. I want you to know, this is brand new stuff. When we started this study in 2012, I used the term glyph, and it had never been applied to this subject before in the Sasquatch world. If a single step is about 2.5 feet, and mine is, we're like 2.5 inches along that path. Everything is brand new. We're learning as we go. Everything we say is not written in stone. It's merely how we view it today. Does that make sense? Okay. This is all subject to change. Also, we're talking about the woo a bit. I'm going to tell you what I saw as I interpreted it. Okay? You may have seen the same thing and interpreted it differently. But I'm going to tell you what I saw and I interpreted it. Okay? Is that all right? It may get a little wooey here and there. But they do things that just flat amaze me. Even after 64 years, they blow my socks off sometimes. Big question, how do I know it's not human-made? How do I know it's not natural? The answer simply is, there's no 100% way. Okay, unless you see him doing it. But we can use the tricks that I learned in order to substantiate these. There's Brian and I doing what we do best. Okay, we did have a good time. Brian has got a wonderful voice. He was a professional singer. He can walk down the trail, and by the time we get to the end of the trail, he's got a new song composed. Yeah. Everywhere we went, it was, what's his name? Don't get old, it's not worth it. Second thing that goes is your memory. I can't remember what the first thing was. Ian Tyson, he was one of them. And then, folk singer, written 2 million songs. Reckon Edmund Fitzgerald was one of them. But,
Gordon Lightfoot.
There you go. It was either Gordon Lightfoot or Ian Tyson we were singing wherever we went, okay? We did have a good time doing this. We're going to share here just a few photos of what we collected, just to show you what we're talking about. Go ahead next. Okay, that just covers what we were just saying. Next. Next. Okay, isn't that gorgeous? Next. Next. That was right outside our tent. What do you think they're depicting there?
Get out.
No, it's their home. Next. Next. Notice these sticks are all peeled that they were using. That's one of the clues we used. There were no peeled sticks there. They peeled the bark off that used to make these glyphs. Okay? Next. Those. Okay? Next. There's one of our clues. Pretty good one. Okay. Next. Okay. Next. Next. As you can see, we found a lot of tracks too. Next. Those are youngsters. This is what we call Second Beach. That's about, it's about 12 kilometers from the end of the road. Pardon me, this is Canada, so 7 miles from the end of the road. And there's a beach right along the creek there. And the youngsters played there a lot. And we were always finding their tracks there. Next. Next. This one has all the earmarks. It's a simple directional glyph. But see the track? That's a good clue. Next. This one I have to spend a little time on. This is probably one of the most significant finds of my career. And let me tell you why. If you notice, the asterisk normally is a power symbol. They use it as a power symbol. If you look at this, 3 elements. The bottom element on the ground, almost fully covered with moss. The second element, about half covered with moss. The upper element, no moss on it at all. And the whole thing is tied in the center by a split maple width just a stick. But it's split when it was green and it's tied there. That width is on my bookcase in my apartment because they asked us to remove this because they had built a new camping area. They're too close to it. This is a ritual site. That glyph symbolizes the transition from the old to the new. And it's where their teachers were ordained. Okay? That's why they didn't want to let there where people, although you can tell it's been there many years. That moss doesn't grow overnight. And then to add to it as well, see the track way right across the middle of it? 51 inches step to step. Tracks were 15 inches long. 15 inches, that's an individual that's 8 foot, inch and a half tall, and weighs 675 pounds. If you want to know how I came by those figures, stop by and ask me and I'll show you. I'm an engineer by training, and measuring things is what engineers do. And I built a device to measure weight and then did the math on it and came up with that figure. But basically, you figure they find out the square inches in the track, multiply that by 7.5, and that'll give you his weight. So, pretty good sized boy. Okay, next. Look at that. See, it's broken, but not completely. And then the other cross piece is woven under and over. What are the chances of the wind doing that? Pretty slim. Next. Again, the same thing. Chances of the wind doing that are 2, slim and none. And slim just caught the cross down to us. Okay, next. This one again. Over, under. Under, over. Under, over. Totally woven. Wind did not do that. It had to be done by hands. Now, you can argue whose hands. I would accept that. But we've edited it significantly enough that we believe over 99% sure it was Sasquatch created. Next. Same thing. Next. Same thing. Next. Same thing. Next. This little guy, he's just a juvenile, but we were doing our words, and he came running across the flat. In this area, there's no underbrush in that area. And it's just like a moss carpet. And he came running across, he's probably 30 yards from us, went behind that stump, pulled down the huckleberry brush, and peeked over the top at us.
He's in between the two areas in the middle, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right there. Okay, next. That's Indigo. He's in southeast Oklahoma. My mentor, walked the, pardon my tooth the other way. You guys in the front row might want to be careful. If they come loose, somebody could get bit. She has to walk out to her mailbox every day. And he would follow her in the brush line. It's about a quarter to a half mile walk out to her mailbox. And he would follow her in the brush. And this one day she named him Indigo because the first time she saw him, there's a little indigo bunting on the ground there. And she says, if you don't hide them and take your picture, he didn't, she did. And that's Indigo. Next. This fellow is up in north central Washington on Lake Roosevelt behind Grand Coulee Dam. A good friend of mine lived in Tri-Cities, was fishing, playing Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds tapes at high volume one day, and they saw him come down the mountain. As he came down, they followed his progress. He'd go out of sight and he'd come back inside about the time they figured he was due. Then he just disappeared. And Kyle says, I want to swim ashore and see if I can get closer. Well, he no sooner got in the water than he came back in view. Well, Kyle's swimming ashore, and his wife's trying to yell at him. Of course, swimming he couldn't hear. He's continuing down the mountain. They got to the shore at the same time. Kyle stood up, and they were eyeball to eyeball. And this guy, he just gave out just a screech. And Kyle said it froze him flat in place. He said, if you'd have shot me, I couldn't have fallen down. He said, I was that frozen, my muscles were that locked. And that's a safety thing. That isn't a mean thing. That keeps you from running amok and running over a bank somewhere in your flight. He just retreated back up the hill, released that lock. Kyle jumped back in the water, swam back to the boat, Although his wife said that Michael Phelps had absolutely nothing on Kyle that day, that he was up and playing, okay, coming back. Next. Oh, this is Blue. he's also back in Oklahoma. That's Indigo's younger brother. Next. Okay. Signature glyphs. This is a category, and we've identified several glyphs in our work as signatures of the individuals involved. We got to know that clan really well. The clan leader, his name was Arishna, and he's a big guy. He's 12 foot tall and white. And his daughter, who was about 18 at the time, was Rajase. And Rajase is very unique, and she's the only one I've ever seen with blue eyes. And Porshna is Rajase's mate. I'm going to tell you a little story here. When it's time for them to take a mate, they know their population. They know the possible problems with inbreeding. When it was time for her to want a mate, it came back that there was a young male in Oklahoma that was eligible and looking for a mate. Rajase went to Oklahoma. My mentor saw her there. Very distinctive with the blue eyes. Okay? They stayed there about 2 weeks, and then they returned back to her home to live. And that's what they do, except in the cases where the male is too important to his own home clan to leave. Okay, but that's the normal routine for the youngsters. Porshna is very tall. His father is about 15 feet tall, but even at like 20 years old, he was 10, 11 feet tall, but very slim, but he's filled out now. Okay. So the A-glyphs, that's Arishna. Ari, we call him. Believe me, Brian, my partner, is a little flippant sometimes. He has a tendency to say things out of school, and I can't tell you how many times he's gotten my earwax burned out. Yeah. Get him under control. Right, fat chance of that. But I didn't have to, I was like, if you want to get closer to these people, you're going to have to tone it down. And he did. Okay. There's an A. Next. Another A. Another A. Another one. And something unique about this. That's birch. And this is way up on the side of the mountain. The only place that birch grows in that area are down the river bottoms. So that was carried up there. And the only element of this that's in the snow, in the ground, is that one right there. The others are just laid on top of it. Okay, next. Okay. Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that a thing of beauty? Next. Okay, the H glyphs, this is our girl Rajase. Okay. I'm doing pretty good on notes this time. Sometimes I tend to, well, I get done and I look down and 6 pages of notes and I'm still on page 2. But at least I'm up to page 3. The worst I ever did was Ocean Shores one time. I got all the way down, looked at my notes, see if I'd forgotten anything, and I even had the wrong set of notes up. I never turned page 1. Okay. The H is Rajase. And generally with hers, there was always a stone or a leaf involved in her name signature. She was pretty easy to identify. Next. There we go. There's the H. Next. Yeah. Thank you. Next. Next. Okay. The forklift, that's Porsche. It started out as a P and then they changed it. Next. See that 4? That's Porsche. Next. 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 Banner glyph. I decided since they were doing so well, we identified this, I'd put something together of my own so I could identify myself to them. So I came up, since my name's Tom, with a T with a kind of a slant. They didn't like that, I guess. Next. There's what they came back with. Now we call it a banner glyph because it kind of resembles a flag. Next. See the different styles of it, but it's basically the same thing. Next. 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 Now, this is one we found in British Columbia. Notice the banner, and there's a modifier there that I knew what it meant, but it wasn't for general broadcast. This was in BC. Summer 2016 to 2015, we went to a camp. We called it Camp Broken Arrow. It was down by on the southwest side of Mount Hood. And in camp, we'd been out all day doing our thing, came back, I sat down in my chair and looked between my legs, and next, there sat that. So, not only British Columbia, but they knew me in Oregon as well. Next. We figured out since that worked with me, we'd get something for Brian. So, next. There's what we designed. Next. There's what they did to it. So we reworked it. Next. That was a little better. Next. I'm not sure he has one yet. Next. Okay. New glyphs. We found some new stuff coming in the last while. And we don't quite yet have it handled on all of them. One thing we found out for sure is that if you want to understand what glyphs are, what they mean, they have to be for you. Because you have to know the context. Okay? Take the word BOW. What's that mean? It can be a ribbon in your hair or a band at the waist. The pendant of a ship or something to launch an arrow with. It all depends on context. If you don't know the context, you have no idea what the 3 letters mean, do you? Okay, same thing here. If you don't know the context, you're reading somebody else's mail, basically. Now, here's one of the new ones. I call it a pie glyph or a rangefinder glyph. And these have been showing up quite a bit. Next. See how that's a little sideways there. I have to get on the photographer on that one. Next. And that's just a little stone we found. That's my usual gift, are stones. I've always been a rock nut. When I was a kid, there were times my jacket didn't get home for 15 minutes till after I did, because it was so full of rocks and pockets. But yeah, that time I'm telling you about with the 2 in the road, that trip. Every night I had a new stone gifted to me. I'd go to my tent, go to bed I had a mattress that was 16 inches in deep, her mattress. Sue called that my princess mattress. I told her it did. But every night there'd be a new rock on that mattress. And of course I had to keep them all. Okay. Next. Okay. I'll let you read that. But asterisk, they're a sign of power, of energy. And they're fairly common. They do have other meanings in other areas. They can have other meanings, so you have to be careful with that. But generally speaking, they're a power source. Okay. And next. 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 All sorts of asters at different sizes. They come from mini to macro. Next. Isn't that one a gorgeous one? Next. Next. Found out in the Ochiko Mountains down Central Oregon. Next. This one's cute in that that middle element right there. This was found on Arla's front porch, my mentor's front porch. That one stick had been on her back porch, and they brought it around to the front porch to make that symbol. Next. Again, directional glyphs. This is, again, a general sign, a general class of glyphs, pardon my French. Next. I like this one. I think it looks like he ran into the rock and broke himself, doesn't it? Next. Simple direction. Next. Same thing. Next. 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 This one is actually a road map. Okay? I had asked them where the clan had gone, and they left this for me. You follow the trail, cross the river, and go to the Stony Mountains. And that's where you'll find us. It made sense to me because I knew what they were talking about. Okay, next. X-glyphs, one of the most misunderstood. People anthropomorphize. Because X means no to us as people, they think it means the same thing to them. It does not. The X-glyph is a sign of welcome and friendship. If it has your glyph with it, then it's specific to you. Next. Next. Laurie Simmons and I, when we found North Cascades. Next. This one, in our campground, Marble Creek Campground on the Cascade River. This was the campground. Many of you have seen the picture of the white one kneeling down, bent over two people. This was a camp where that occurred. That picture was taken the day before it occurred. That occurred. But it's a welcome sign by the X. But see that rocker? That includes everybody in camp. And the group that came over, that was Adam Davies and the Extreme Expedition team from England that we were hosting there that week. And Adam and Sandy Sanderson and Dave Archer and Simon Melkor, the gal that screamed Bigfoot in the car, she was there for that one. It was quite an outfit. And that was left right in camp for us. Okay. Next. This one, very special. Notice there that the little end of that is on the ground and the big end's on the, up in the air. This is on the South Fork of the Touchy River, just out of Walla Walla a ways. I lived over there. I lived in Tri-Cities for 30 years before I came back over to this side. And the desert's my home. And this was done by my teacher's daughter. And she's a redhead. We were talking about hair color earlier. She's a redhead. And she's in that picture if you can find it. Okay. Next. I love this one. Arla had a group over. She was making the medicine wheel. Arla is half Cherokee, quarter Choctaw, and quarter Scottish. I told her, don't ever make her mad. I found out just 2 weeks ago that Arla and I are related. We've known her for many years now, because it's always been, we were brother-sister relationship. We found out she's out of Guthrie clan, Scottish Guthrie clan. I just found out my great-grandmother was a Guthrie. So we're actually related to the Guthrie clan. And, but Arla was going to build a medicine wheel. And she's a shaman. She doesn't like me to say that, but she is. I mean, I had heart trouble one time. I was in my apartment in Kennewick. I'd called 911. The paramedics were there. I was on the gurney heading out the door. My phone rings. It's Arla in Oklahoma. Who are those people and what's wrong with you? That opened my eyes. Yeah. And she was doing that to me all the time, one thing or another. Well, to this particular time, she wanted to build this medicine wheel. She set center stone and then proceeded to work. They went in, came out the next morning, the center stone had been moved. So she put it back where it was, started it again, and they knocked off for the day. Come back the next day, and the center stone had been moved back again. She said, well, if that's where you want it, I guess we'll leave it there. And they built it. Vernal equinox. It's first day of spring. The sun rose. It's shown right through that X and those cross trees, right to the center of that medicine wheel. You think they didn't know where they wanted that placed? Next. Triangles. Triangles have lots of uses. They have so many different symbols or uses depending on context, where they're used, how they're used, who they're used for. You can't really narrow it down, but they are something you will commonly see. Okay, next. Isn't it gorgeous? Look at that. That has got to be just pure art, doesn't it? Again, under, over, under, over, under, over. Next. 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 Okay, this one is rock stacks. Be careful with rock stacks, because many, many, many people make them. They make cairns for lots of reasons. So you've got to have good evidence to go with them if you're going to claim there's Sasquatch do build them, do make them. Again, these are some that we vetted pretty heavily. Next. Next. Isn't that cool? That was right by the gate going the last road in golden ears. Next. Next. This one is extremely special. And I have a good friend who, believe it or not, this is in a park in Puyallup. It's like 360 acres of natural land, so it's all timber. Becky used this as her gifting area. And that stump, she had put a cloth down and used these stones to hold it in place, and then she put out apples and peanut butter. By the way, if you're going to gift food, those are the two best things in the world to do. Please do not give them anything high sugar. They don't have dentists. And I don't want to meet a 12-foot Sasquatch with an abscessed tooth. Okay. That said, I will say this. If you think you have an aggressive Sasquatch, I'm 79 years old next month. Call me, I'll come stand between you and them. Yes, they can get angry at us, but it's due to lack of respect on our part that caused it. Ape Canyon, prime example. Mark was talking about. They were shooting them. Hollaby Massacre, they were shooting them. You think I wouldn't get ticked too? I have never had a negative experience with a Sasquatch when I showed respect in everything I do. I don't even take a picture unless I ask permission first. And I certainly don't step on some toes here, fly drones or electronics. That's so rude. If they flew it over my house, I'd shoot it down. Why shouldn't they? You know. Be respectful. Always be respectful. At any rate, when we came back to check how our gifting had gone, this is what we found. Never did find the cloth, but they'd stacked the rocks that we used to hold the cloth down in this form. Next. Oh, Baba Fett. That's what it looks like. Next. And he looks like a duck. Next. This is another great little story. My buddy and my research partner, Brian, was kind of feeling down in the dumps one day. He was hiking into what we call the green tank. It's a water tank for the camp area. And he said, if you're around today, how about leaving me a sign? So as he walked in, he came across this. Okay? It's about a 20 to 30 minute walk into the tank. He spent an hour or so there, then walked back out and found this. Now, on first guess, you'd say that just fell down, right? See that stick right there? There's nowhere there. There's nowhere around. The whole big rock, if you look at where this little plant over here, compare it there, has been shifted. The little rock on top, see that spot in relation to the green moss, and compare it to here. That's been shifted. They took that down.
Is this all communication
All communicating. Mm-hmm.
amongst them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next, we're going to get into some art here. We've seen the utilitarian uses of glyphs and how they work. But let's see what you think about these. Next. 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 Isn't that gorgeous? Next. This one is very special to me. They built that just for me. See that 8-point star there? That's a representation of the star of Melchizedek. I hold the priesthood of Melchizedek. That was put there to honor my priesthood. 2 hours later, that was gone. What would it be worth to receive a gift like that? What would you do? Would you treat him with respect? Would you go sit out on your chair and pop open a Diet Pop, your Kindle, read, wait for him to come to you? I guarantee you it's worth it. Next. Look at that. No wind blew that way. Next. That again is a ritual site. This one's not being used. All around there were sticks stuck in the ground, about a foot, foot and a half. They were inch to inch and a half in diameter. I could not get them through the duct. I couldn't even break the duct, put them in, but they did. And they were all around that device. Every one of those trees did not grow there. They were carried there and placed. Next. Structures. Structures are a little different. They have many, many different uses. Some we know, some we don't know. Okay? They come in a variety of forms, and most, to be truthful, are total mystery to us. But I can show you areas in our research area where they would build 10 of them overnight. Derek and Shane's nests, very reminiscent of what we see. A lot of them, I think, are a crèche, someplace to put the baby while we're feeding, while we're gathering food. And the nests they find, I'm almost sure that's what those are. And their nest, I mean, you should check those out. They're fantastic. They really are fantastic. Next. Look at that. One thing that we look for that's pretty common to all of our structures. See the ferns inside that? Those are sword ferns. Have you ever tried to pick a sword fern? They're pretty tough, aren't they? They can cut them, but these are picked. And they use them profusely in their structures, around their structures. Next. See them in there? Next. There's Randy Brisson and my partner Brian. During the winter, when the snow's on and the clan comes down from the high country, they have quite a population there. And they conduct, it's actually a school on building these shelters right in that area. And like I said, we'll find 10 and build a day. Next. This one, I'm not sure what it is. I just thought it was so darn interesting to be out in the water like that. Is it a boathouse? I don't know, but it's pretty darn cool. Okay. I want to show you one here, and I'm just going to let you look at it and think about it for a second. Next. Oh, forgot this guy. Next. Next. Look at that. Remember we said what the X was? And who's it for? Welcome, Tom, to Canada and our home under the trees. Ain't that cool? Then my friend Sue, also part of our team, asked them to design her a glyph to designate her. Next, there's what they did. Twigs from every tree that grew in the forest. Twigs and leaves from every tree that grew in the forest. And they piled it. Because she's ubiquitous. She's what every research needs, a good skeptic. Not that she's skeptical about Sasquatch, but okay, this is a great glyph, but what makes you think Sasquatch made it? Where's your proof that they made this one? Okay, and put me back to work, because Brian and I did tend to accept maybe some of the work iffy, but okay. That's what I wanted next, please. That's what I wanted to show you. The book is kind of a report on our 5-year study. It's the only one I've ever published in color. Ryan and I wrote that together. Questions? Oh, come on, I wasn't that good. Well, somebody wake that lady up right now. No questions?
You've been doing this how many years?
64 years in August.
What was the first thing that made you look on
I know one thing, I'm gonna look real close when I go in the woods.
There you go. My first real significant, I've seen them peeking around trees quite a bit. But one September, my friend and my logging company was shut down for fire danger, and he was off that day. And we said, let's go grouse hunting. Well, grouse hunting in September was a euphemism for us to be in the woods when the elk were screaming. Okay? That, if you haven't done that, do it. It's worth anything you spend to do it. So that's what we did. We go out and we find a herd of elk and then just walk along with them. If you do it right, just use a cow call and talk to them. You can walk right along with them while they're feeding. And reach out and touch a cow here, reach out and touch a cow here. And we did that for about 3-4 hours. And finally, we got them in a corner and it kind of busted them all up. The herd bull was a 5-point bull and he was not happy with us. So we decided we'd probably pushed him about as far as we really should. So we'd gotten split up, but we always did, so no big problem. We just headed back to the truck. The first one got there, pulled out the Coleman stove, started the coffee pot, and waited for the other one to get there. And as I was coming back, I saw, and this was up in the dickey, it was just up by La Cosette. And I saw a clearing ahead of us. And in that country, that generally means a pond. Okay, because as wet as that country is. And so I sneaked up on it to see what was around the pond. Well, it wasn't. It was an area of blow-down timber. Just a little microcosm, maybe 5-6 acres. But it had been down long enough and had oyster mushrooms growing on it. And there were 2 bears picking the mushrooms and eating them. So I said, I'm going to sneak up and watch this for a while. And then one of the bears stood up to look around to make sure there was nothing around. There wasn't no bear. There was no bear. So I just hunkered back, the wind was in my face. And that was my first chance of the Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall type observation. Sit there for 30 minutes and just observe them. Then pick mushrooms. And first one is stand up and look around, make sure there's nothing around. Then the other one later on, just alternate back and forth. Finally, we're sitting there probably 30 minutes into this, and felt a gust of wind hit the back of my neck. Uh-oh, busted. 4 eyes, click, right on top, right on me. And so I just stepped away from the tree, let him see who I was. And I told him, I said, thank you for showing me your family. It was very nice of you. I was here, I'm here to learn about you, and thank you so much. And he had stepped back, and as she departed, she reached down and picked up a baby who was on the ground, and he just clung to her, and she walked back into the timber. And as he left, he turned and looked back, and I swear he nodded his head at me. To this day, that was like 1973, and to this day, I swear he nodded his head at me as he left. But that was my first real babe.
Do you think they know who's cool and who's not?
Absolutely. The question was, do they know who's cool and who's not? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Very much so. They work with those they want to work with, that they can work with. Okay? As you can imagine, I get a lot of people wanting to go out. Because now, I'm at the point now, wherever I go, they come looking for me. You know, all I have to do is sit there and I'll call. Yes?
I noticed in one of your pictures there was a small dog. Does the dog have any reaction? Like if he...
Yeah, he was great. He'd point him out to us immediately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's totally unobtrusive. They don't mind dogs as long as they don't. As Judy back there, what happens when he bites or barks at them or chases the youngsters. She had that happen, and she got told really quickly the dog was not welcome. Yeah. And back to that, when I told you I would stand with you. Have I ever been asked to leave an area? Yes, I have. What did I do? I left. You know, I've gone over to my friend's house and got him at a bad time. Oh, I'll come back later. Same thing there. There was something going on that did not involve me, should not involve me. So I just left. Went somewhere else. No big deal. Okay. Anybody else? Your last chance. Well, till you get back there. Thank you very much, people.
Good job, Tom.